All right, so we are getting ready to get started with our face parts project. And ultimately, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing a collage of different face parts. You're going to have 2 eyes, you're going to have 2 noses, we're going to have 2 sets of lips. Okay, so today, what we're going to do is we are going to focus on drawing the eyes. Okay, because the eyes are pretty much what makes any portrait, which ultimately is what our project is going to be after this is a portrait. So with an eye, there are several ways to draw an eye, and the way that I'm going to show you isn't necessarily the best way, it's just one of the ways to do it. Okay, there are several videos out there that you can use to watch to have different variations on how to do it other than the way that I show you. I show you this way because that's how it works best for doing a portrait. It's because I start with the overall shape of the eye, and because that way that will fit within a space that we're going to fit into our face for our drawings. So ultimately I'm going to draw this one right here. So what we're going to do is say that I'm going to start, it's going to be this wide. Let's put some little marks there. My corner of my eye over here is a little bit higher than this side, so I just need to keep that in mind as I go to get it drawn out. So I'm going to start here, and the center line, or the highest point, is kind of here. So I'm going to make sure that when I draw it and it goes up, and it's going to come down like this, and that's going to be my top part. I have a tear duct kind of over here in the corner, so we're going to get that drawn in, and her eye comes up, and then it goes down from there and then matches back up to the corner. So I've got this part here where it's going to go up, and then it comes down like this. It's going to match up to this corner. All right, so we're going to do this here, and when we do this, we want to try and think of the things that we learned when we did the self-portrait, the still lifes, to where we want our lines, our shadows to be made with the shape. Yeah, I'm messing this all up. So we got the pupil, or the iris rather, is going to be about half to 3/4, depending on the eye, and the iris itself is going to be round. Okay, the pupil, I've got a little highlight over the top here, so I'm going to get that in first, and we're going to put a little circle right in here for the pupil. Now, pupils vary on their sizes depending on the person. Some of them are real small, some can be really big. Depends on the light of where it is that they're looking. All right, so we've got that in there, and then we've got a little bit of the waterline on the bottom edge of the eye, where that comes in, comes down like this, along there, and then we've got the eyelid up on the top part. So the eyelid is going to come in like this, around the top. Now this is all just real rough right now. So for the pupil is going to be black. So we don't want to just go ahead and shade it all the way across. We still want to kind of shade it round, because ultimately our eye is round, and we want that to kind of match up to that. It might not seem like it's a big thing, but it does make a difference in the long run. I'm trying to get that to be nice and round. Okay, so with the color in the eye, or the iris, that's all a little bit different. If you have somebody that has really dark brown eyes, then you're not going to see a whole lot of detail as far as, you know, where the little textures of the eyes are. If you have somebody that has really light eyes like this, you can see there's all kinds of little textures. See, with this one, there's all kinds of little textures in here. So you want to include that when you draw your eye, because that helps give it a little bit of character. Okay, with this particular eye color, or from this photo anyway, we can't see a whole lot of texture of the eye, but we can see there's a little dent right there. So what we're going to do is, her eye is a little bit darker around the outside edge, and that's pretty common when you look at eyes to have the very outside edge be a little bit darker. So we're just going to shade this just a little bit here, and we're going to have our lines kind of come in from the outside and from the top in towards the center. Now, if you need to move your paper around to do this, that's fine. Whatever is going to work out best. And then we're going to get just a little bit of some lines in there to kind of show some textures, some of those patterns. And we're going to work our way through and get a good value in there. Okay. Now, when you do this, if they have lighter eyes, obviously you're going to press a little bit lighter. If you have darker eyes, then it's going to be a little bit darker. Okay. So get this in here. Now, when you do this, I'm going through this kind of quick, but eyes have, you can spend hours working on just one eye, which I have done before. All right, so the white of the eye itself isn't necessarily all the way white. It's going to have a little bit of value to it. And some of them, if you look at this one here, it's got a lot of blue out here in the eye itself, so that's going to be represented with a shadow or with some shading of some sort. Okay, so we want to get a little bit of that in here, a little bit of that in here. And we're not going to go too crazy with the shading right now because we don't have anything else going on around it to kind of reference it as a guide. But we want to keep in mind our value scales that we talked about with the still lifes, that we still want to have a full range of values for this, which we'll get to eventually. All right, so I'm going to kind of get some of the shading underneath the eye. Everybody's eyes are a little bit different, and with the images that we look at, some of them have some makeup on there, so you're not going to see anything. Looks kind of freaky actually to have no lines or wrinkles or anything on the eye, but it's just a matter of how it all gets done. Okay, and get a little bit of shading in here, and then we're going to get some shading up top again on the eye here. Now, when you go to do this, okay, you want to really look to see what's there, because when you get in around the eyes, that can really make or break a drawing. And we want to make sure that we get all of those things done well. Because if you don't, then it's really going to throw everything off. And we don't want to go too crazy with your shading throughout. All right, so go a little heavier with this. Now with her, you don't really see the line there because of the eyebrows. That's fine. With this one here, we see a lot of that line because of the angle the picture was taken. So it all depends on with what angle it was taken as far as how that is going to change things. So you can kind of guess at it, kind of fill things in, but we're going to leave this the way that it is for now. A little bit of value in here. Now, when it comes to those eyelashes, the way that you really want to do it is to make sure that you have a real nice sharp pencil and that you practice it. Because if you have an eye, even that's a bad eye, that if you try to force and try to be real precise as far as how it is, it's not going to look natural because eyelashes get thinner as they go out, and these don't really do that. So you want to have a line that kind of flows, and when it's real light with your fingers. Okay, so as you come out, it's going to be thicker on the bottom, and it'll get thinner as the pencil goes up and away from the page. All right, when we look, the eyelashes that are on the outside edge of the eye curve out and away from the eye, and then as we work our way through, they start to get more vertical and more straight. So they're curved here. As we come out, they get straighter. As we go to the inside of the eye, they start to curve a little bit inward. And that's pretty consistent, throughout the world. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I can still fiddle with this some more, but I'm going to go ahead and get my eyelashes drawn in. So I want to start on the top. We're going to start over here, and I'm going to work my way into it. I can always come in, add a little bit of shading to it, but with your drawing, usually you want to do the eyebrows and do the eyelashes last, because you've got all the shading that you have to do around it. If you need to correct it, then you can do that. But once you get those eyelashes in, you really can't, because you can't go back in and redraw that line that's got a real nice natural flow to it. All right, so I can always go back in and add a little bit more shading, but you can't really take it away. So I'm going to go from here. I'm going to kind of practice a couple times in the air just to kind of see where I need to be. And then we're going to start here. We're going to curve, and we're going to go out and up. You can always go back over it if you need to add some more to it. And you want to kind of look to see, because there's a couple spots here where there's some spacing. And as we get in towards the center, we're going more vertical. And then as we get over to the side, we're going to start to curve that way a little bit. When we get not quite all the way down, we're going to stop. Now, eyelashes on the bottom, there's not nearly as many of them, and they don't go in a consistent direction. If we look at some of these, they kind of go all over the place. Some of these go up, some of these go down. Just kind of depends on the individual. So we're going to come in here and get on that water line that's right there and pull some lines down. Just have a handful of eyelashes down here. Double some up just to give it a little bit of look. So we got all this in here. I can always come back in here, shade a little bit. The reason why I want you guys to do this with just the pencil is you don't want to rely on your finger to shade, because it's not very precise, and we don't want to rely on a blending stump because it's kind of a crutch. I used to use one all the time. I've gotten away from it just because everything can be done with just a pencil. So here's my forward facing eye that you have to have, and then the other eye that you have to do is one that's done in either a profile or in a 3/4. So it's for a side view or a 3/4 view. Those can be a little bit tricky, so we don't necessarily want to draw the one that's closest to us, because that looks a lot like the one that we just drew. We want to draw the one that's further away. Usually it's tucked in behind the nose. So for this particular one, what we're going to do is I'm just going to get a little bit of a line in here. That's going to be my nose. I'm not worried about the shape of the nose or anything like that. We're going to draw those another time. But what we want to do is look at the general shape of it, kind of the same way we did the first one, where we're going to curve up. And again, everyone is a little bit different, have a little bit different shape to it, and then it's going to go up, and the shape of the peak is generally going to be different. It's not going to be in the center, but it's going to be off to one side. And then for this particular person, his eyelids are rather heavy, so we're going to go in, get those drawn in, and get the general shape of those, and then just for giggles, put the edge of his face in over here, just so we can kind of see how that's going to look when we go in to put the eyebrows. The eyebrows work just the same as the eyelashes, where it's going to be kind of light lines that kind of work their way through, and you don't want to shade them in, just straight up shade them. You want to actually have the individual lines there to kind of show the shape of where things need to be. Again, do those after the fact. You're drawing on your portraits, when we get to them, it's going to look really strange because it's not going to have any eyelashes, it's not going to have any eyebrows, it's going to look weird. That's fine. Alright, general shape in. Alright, so when we do the eye over here, it's not going to be in the center of the eye generally, it's going to be off to one side, and you'll have a lot larger white of the eye on one side than you will on the other, just because their head is turned away. Same things apply. We've got a highlight that fits in here. We've got a pupil that's going to be in the center of the iris. Sometimes if it's really shifted over to one side, like if it's a straight up profile, the pupil is not going to be in the center of the eye. It will be offset. It just kind of depends, again, on the photo. And then everything else, as far as the shading goes, applies the same as it did with the other view. Okay, so the process is going to be the same. It's just a matter of getting things in place where they need to be. All right. So, questions?